Joining me now is Saul Wisenberg, former deputy independent counsel and Fox News contributor, as well as David Schoen, former Trump impeachment lawyer. All right, Saul, I do kind of agree with what Vivek Ramaswamy tweeted out earlier, that this seems a little bit like a smokescreen, because is it bigger than the Biden family's perhaps being on the take with foreign governments and having our foreign policy affected by it? Probably not. But nevertheless, real jail time, a possibility. Your reaction tonight?
Real jail time is not much of a possibility, Laura. But really, in terms of Weiss, he's damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't. If he didn't indict and let the speedy trial clock run out, he'd be criticized for that, deservedly so. And so he did the minimum that he had to do, I think, to save face. So I don't think the fact that he indicted Hunter today or had the grand jury do it is part of a vast cover-up. It's just that there are other cover-ups going on, and that's important to point out.
Well, Hunter's lawyer, Abby Lowell, immediately put out a statement saying, in part, the evidence in this matter has not changed in the last 6 weeks, but the law has, and so has MAGA Republicans' improper and partisan interference in the process. All right, David, he also says that the charges don't hold water because of the diversion agreement. He's going back to the diversion agreement. Your reaction to that?
Well, you know, Hunter's got one of the most experienced criminal lawyers in the country in Abby Lowell, and he's a pretty wise lawyer also. So I think he's going to try his best to negotiate first to get that diversion agreement back in place. But I think if he has to litigate it, he certainly will, and he's a tough fighter. There's something to the idea that diversion agreement can be enforced. It's a signed agreement. Paragraph 19 of the agreement says it's the complete agreement. Government's position is the probation officer didn't sign off where it says approved by, but there's nothing in this agreement, in contrast to the plea agreement, that requires that. And you can be sure behind the scenes the probation office approved it. But beyond that, what he's talking about with the law, I believe, is Fifth Circuit case of Rahimi, is almost identical to count 3 that's charged here. It threw out a charge of possession of a firearm by a person under an order, a domestic violence order, under 18 U.S.C. 922 G8. Count 3 here charges Hunter under 922 G3 being possession of a firearm as a drug user. So very similar. I think they looked at the history in Rahimi, history of the Second Amendment. They found it's not the kind of thing that should be a prohibition against gun possession. I think he's got a strong case. The Supreme Court has granted certiorari in Rahimi. They did that back in June. We'll see what happens. But, you know, this is the hot issue. Yesterday, 6 cases were argued in the New York Court of Appeals on this kind of issue, whether these gun control regulations are constitutional. And Abby Lowell knows he's got a very strong argument in that regard.
I feel like I just got CLE credit, continuing legal education credit from Schoen for the California bar. Thanks, David. I appreciate that. All right, Saul, on this issue, though, Jamie Raskin came out today. And again, they're trying to kind of turn the tables on this narrative. Watch.
Hunter Biden, has been prosecuted by a U.S. attorney who Donald Trump appointed, who Joe Biden kept in office, far from trying to cover anything up.
I think President Biden has credibility that he believes in equal justice under the law, and he allowed Donald Trump's prosecutor to stay on board and investigate his own son.
Because when I think corruption, I think Eric Swalwell. No, Saul, what of this? I mean, Hunter was charged because Joe wants equal justice? What?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think others have said this, and it bears repeating. David Weiss would not have been chosen as the U.S. attorney for the District of Delaware if he was objectionable in any way to either of the 2 Democratic senators there. So, again, to call him Trump appointed is to kind of, yes, he's technically Trump appointed, but it wouldn't have happened if he wasn't an entirely safe individual. And David makes a good point. Abby Lowell is a great lawyer, but remember that Abby is not the one who negotiated the original diversion agreement. And there's going to be a real factual dispute here. If the court says that the agreement is ambiguous on the issue of whether or not the probation officer has to sign off or whether or not he agreed with it, there are differing interpretations, because there was a filing a few days ago where the government said, absolutely, the chief probation officer in Delaware never signed off on it. And the defense came back and said not only did they sign off on it, but the government represented that in an email to the court. But we don't find a record of that anywhere. So there's going to have to be some kind of a hearing on this, and stay tuned.
Well, is this all a gamble, in effect, David, to your point? I mean, you got one federal appeals court doesn't love the statute. There is a question about whether this is going to, hold up. So in the end, could this end up becoming like a boomerang effect on the Republicans themselves? So they say Hunter, 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 and then it's like, well, it actually didn't hold up in court.
It could, and it's at least a diversion, as you pointed out earlier. It's a smokescreen, I think.
All right, Saul, David, great to see both of you. Thanks so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.